What would you do if a king ordered every baby boy in your nation to be killed? This is the terrifying story of the Israelites in Egypt before God sent a deliverer.
Long ago, in the ancient land of Egypt, a people lived in peace. They were the children of Israel, descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Generations earlier, their ancestors had come to Egypt during a time of terrible famine. God had raised up Joseph, one of Jacob's sons, to save both Egypt and his own family from starvation. Because of Joseph, the Israelites were welcomed. They settled in the fertile land of Goshen. There they built homes, they raised families. Their flocks grazed across green fields, and their children grew strong beneath the Egyptian sun. Years passed, then decades, then generations. Joseph died, and the Pharaoh who honored him also died. Eventually, a new king rose to power in Egypt, a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph and did not care about the past. When this Pharaoh looked across his land, he saw something that filled him with fear. The Israelites had multiplied. They were everywhere, in villages, in fields, in towns across Egypt. Their families were large, their communities were strong. Pharaoh looked at them and whispered to his advisors, "Look, the people of Israel have become too many, too powerful." Fear twisted in his heart. What if war comes? What if they join our enemies and fight against us? And so Pharaoh made a decision that would change the lives of the Israelites forever. He would break them, not with a single battle, but slowly, painfully, through oppression. Soon, Egyptian taskmasters were appointed over the Israelites, cruel men with hardened hearts and sharp whips. The command was simple: force them to work and make their labor unbearable. The Israelites were no longer treated as neighbors, they became slaves. Every morning before the sun rose above the desert horizon, the Israelites were driven from their homes. The air was still cold when the work began. Men were forced into fields, others were sent to construction sites where Pharaoh demanded massive cities be built. Cities like Pithom, cities like Ramesses. Great storehouses and monuments meant to display the glory of Egypt. But behind their towering walls was a hidden truth. They were built with suffering. The Israelites mixed mud and straw to form bricks, over and over again, the same motion, the same exhausting labor. Their hands cracked from the dryness of clay, their backs bent beneath the weight of endless loads. Above them stood Egyptian overseers, watching, waiting. If someone slowed down, the whip cracked through the air. If someone collapsed from exhaustion, they were beaten until they stood again. The sun burned fiercely overhead. Day after day, it scorched the land, turning the ground into dust and the air into fire. Still, the work never stopped. And when night finally came, the Israelites dragged their weary bodies home. But even rest brought little comfort. Their muscles throbbed, their wounds burned, their hearts carried a quiet despair. Yet something unexpected happened. Even under brutal oppression, the Israelites continued to grow. More children were born, more families filled the land. The harder Pharaoh tried to crush them, the stronger they seemed to become. This only made Pharaoh more afraid, and fear can turn even the most powerful ruler into something dangerous. Pharaoh decided that slavery alone was not enough. If the Israelites continued to grow, one day they might rise against Egypt. So he devised a darker plan. Quietly, Pharaoh summoned the Hebrew midwives, the women who helped Israelite mothers give birth. Their names were Shiphrah and Puah.
These women had seen countless children born into the world. They had heard the first cries of life. They had watched mothers smile through tears of joy. But Pharaoh gave them an order that chilled their hearts. "When you help the Hebrew women give birth," he said coldly, "watch carefully. If the baby is a boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, let her live." It was a command meant to destroy an entire future. Without sons, the people of Israel would slowly disappear. But the midwives feared God more than they feared Pharaoh, and when the moment came, they refused to obey. Whenever a Hebrew boy was born, they protected him. They let the child live. Time passed, and Pharaoh noticed something. The Israelites were still multiplying, still growing, still strong. In anger, Pharaoh summoned the midwives again. "Why have you done this?" he demanded. "Why have you allowed the boys to live?" The midwives answered carefully. "Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women," they said. "They are strong and give birth before we even arrive." Pharaoh could not prove their defiance, but his anger burned like fire. If the midwives would not destroy the Israelites, then he would make the command public. Soon, a terrifying order spread across the land of Egypt. Pharaoh declared it to everyone. Every Hebrew baby boy that is born must be thrown into the Nile River. The command was ruthless. Now every Egyptian was expected to enforce it. The Nile, the great river that gave life to Egypt, became a place of death. Across Goshen, fear spread through every Israelite home. Pregnancy became a time of dread. Mothers lay awake at night, praying their babies would survive. Fathers watched their doors anxiously, wondering if soldiers would come. When a baby was born, families waited with trembling hearts. Would it be a girl or a boy? If it was a girl, there was relief. If it was a boy, terror filled the room. Some families tried to hide their sons. They wrapped the babies carefully, trying to quiet every cry. But babies cry, and in a land filled with fear, someone might hear them. Sometimes Egyptian soldiers came, sometimes neighbors reported them, and sometimes the unthinkable happened. Tiny infants were torn from their mothers' arms. Their cries echoed across the riverbanks. The Nile carried away more than water. It carried the sorrow of a nation. Grief spread among the Israelites. Their suffering deepened beyond words. By day they were slaves. By night they were a people in mourning. Years passed, then more years. A generation grew up knowing nothing but oppression. Children watched their fathers beaten by overseers. Young boys learned to carry bricks before they were even men. Old men worked until their strength failed. Women struggled to keep hope alive inside their homes. The Israelites were broken, tired, and afraid. Yet even in their suffering, they remembered something. They remembered the stories passed down from their ancestors, stories of a God who had spoken to Abraham, a God who had promised to bless their people, a God who had protected Joseph long ago. And slowly, from the depths of their pain, the Israelites began to cry out. They cried out for mercy. They cried out for freedom. Their voices rose into the night, prayers whispered in secret, tears falling in the darkness. God, help us. God, see our suffering. God, do not forget us. The groaning of the Israelites rose like a desperate plea from the earth. And though it seemed as if heaven was silent, their cries were heard, their pain was seen, their suffering was not forgotten. But deliverance had not yet come. The chains were still heavy, the whips still cracked, the Nile still flowed past the land where their children were taken. For now, the Israelites remained in darkness, slaves in a foreign land, a nation crying out to God, waiting for a deliverer.